Bethesda and its fans are set to have a pretty big 2025 with more rumors and leaks coming out about the Oblivion remaster from Bethesda again. Probably Todd Howard's worst kept secret maybe ever. And granted, there's a 99.99% chance that Bethesda is not directly creating this new Oblivion remaster or remake or whatever it may be. It's probably going to be headed by Virtuos Studios, where most of these leaks are coming out from. But of course, Bethesda's name is going to be on this, and if you are a fan of their games, if you are a fan specifically of Oblivion, one of my favorite Elder Scrolls games of all time, we not only have rumors that there's going to be an Unreal Engine 5 remake of this game by Virtuos, which I've talked about on the channel, but also some core gameplay changes that are going to switch up how some of this game potentially functions at its core level. But before we get into these new leaks, thank you guys so much for almost 940 subscribers on the channel. I really appreciate your guys' support. If you are new to the channel and you like gaming news and gaming reviews, specifically for RPGs, action adventure type of games, etc., please like and subscribe if you like the video that you see here. Now, let's get into the content. So there was a new article posted on MP First just this morning, which a lot of other gaming publications are now posting and talking about as well, that a former employee from Virtuos Studios talked to them and gave them some specific details that this game is not only going to be fully remade in Unreal Engine 5, which a lot of different people suspected based on the LinkedIn post that I talked about in a previous video from a current employee that is working at Virtuos Studios, but also that there's going to be core mechanics changed in this new version of Oblivion. These gameplay improvements include reworks to stamina, stealth, blocking, archery, hit reaction, and the HUD. But before getting into the gameplay improvements, I want to talk about what it means for this game to be fully remade in Unreal Engine 5. I've said this before, I'm going to say it again, this potentially might be the most beautiful version of any Bethesda game we've ever seen. In my personal opinion, I think Unreal Engine looks a lot better than the creation engine that they've been using for pretty much every Bethesda game since Skyrim. I also think with all of the discourse coming out regarding if they should switch to the Unreal Engine, that it's going to be very interesting to see what an actual Bethesda game looks like in a brand new engine here, and could give them a little bit of feedback regarding if it's a good idea to move over to this engine with their own studio for their own upcoming games. But there definitely is some things here that are a little bit worrisome, I think, to a decent amount of fans, or at least that I've seen in my personal comments about this switch and about this remake in Unreal Engine 5. A lot of people think Unreal Engine, for right now at least, is releasing a lot of slop games, specifically in the open world market. The Unreal Engine 5 doesn't do, at least from what we've seen so far, and hasn't been utilized to do a very big open world very well. There is a decent amount of performance issues that come with the Unreal Engine 5 in regards to a gigantic open world, which Oblivion definitely is. If you guys remember, Oblivion is 1/3 bigger than Skyrim, which could prove a bit difficult in terms of a full remake of this game in this engine. We also know something that the creation engine does do very well, which is a staple in Bethesda games at this point, is being able to interact with pretty much everything in the environment, including tiny 3D models like bowls, forks, mugs, etc. In addition to this, we haven't seen the UE5 engine or games that are created on this engine be anywhere near as moddable as some of the most recent, or pretty much any Bethesda game made in the creation engine. The creation kit gives more tools to modders in the community than pretty much any other game that's ever been created, and some of the best mods of all time have been created using the creation kit by the community. So I'm definitely interested to see what this game ends up looking like when it's most likely going to be revealed on January 23rd, but we're going to have to wait and see whether this new engine is going to be a positive or a negative for this remake. But now getting into the specific game mechanics that are said to be potentially reworked in this new version of Oblivion. And first thing here is the blocking, which they apparently took improvements from games like the Souls-like series and implemented them into this game, because as this person states, or as this former employee at Virtuos states, that they thought the previous blocking system was a little bit too boring and a little bit too frustrating. And the one thing that immediately pops to my head here is potentially an addition of a parry mechanic. If you're using a shield, the enemy attacks you, you can use that shield to then parry and potentially get a big hit or a final hit or something like that on the enemy, which in my opinion, and I've said this previously, if they are going to make changes, an addition of a parry mechanic would be a great idea. idea to freshen up and add additional combat gameplay mechanics to the game. In Elder Scrolls 6, I would love to see additions like this to the combat because I think Skyrim combat, Oblivion, and previous can get a bit stale over time where there's not a lot of variation specifically in the combat. Now, the next change here is with the stealth system. Apparently in their quote-unquote improved sneak system, the sneak icons are now highlighted and the damage calculation methods were reworked. If you guys remember in Oblivion, at least in my opinion, I actually loved the stealth system there in regards to it feeling relatively challenging but also pretty gratifying, and obviously, like in every Elder Scrolls game, getting very overpowered as you get to the higher levels. Now, I'm not actually directly sure what they mean here by reworking some of the calculations with the stealth system, so hopefully in regards to stealth and the sneak system in general, it is improved overall. I hope they don't nerf anything that a lot of people love to play in the original game. It's a single player game. If somebody wants to be overpowered, in my opinion, they should be able to just use the stealth system, get to a higher level, and pretty much just be overpowered, in my opinion. They also apparently made changes to the stamina system here, where they thought, again, it was too frustrating for the players in the original game, where now when your stamina is depleted and you get knocked down, that's going to be a little bit more hard to apparently activate now with the new, again, calculations here that were reworked. So apparently this is just saying that your character is going to be getting knocked down less, and the game overall with the stamina system is going to be less frustrating, which I guess is a fine change, nothing that I really care about too much, but it is what it is. Now, the next change here is not necessarily to the core gameplay, but is to the presentation of the actual game, where they're apparently going to be changing the HUD to appeal to younger players, which this one makes no sense to me at all. The biggest appeal of this game is to older players like me and others who played the game as kids or, young adults or even adults back when the original Oblivion fully actually released, and I want to be playing the same game. I don't want it to feel like I'm playing an entirely different game here. That's what Elder Scrolls 6, the next upcoming game in the franchise, is set to do, so I don't necessarily agree with trying to appeal to younger players with a new HUD at all. Just give us the same one. I liked the old school look. Now next here, going back to the actual gameplay changes, they're apparently adding hit reactions to improve the damage response to both players and NPCs, which we'll have to see what this ends up being, but I think this is a relatively good change and might just make the game feel more impactful in general. And last but not least, archery was apparently improved to make it more playable both in first and third person modes, which could be a relatively good change. Again, no specific details on how they actually improved this, but just a smoother feeling archery system in general, I think is a good change. That's to be expected, that this game is going to play better than the clunky version of that game in the past, which granted feels very good on new PCs regardless. But overall, in my personal opinion, I do welcome some gameplay mechanic changes here, or at least improvements to the overall experience that we had in Oblivion when it fully released originally. Now, you can still go back and play the original game, add mods to make it look a lot better, so there's not super big incentive for them to just create the game exactly the way it was with better graphics, because you can already kind of get that now and play the game the exact way it was when it originally released. But changes to the presentation, like the HUD for example, I don't think it's a very good idea. I think this is a pretty unnecessary change. I don't think appealing to a younger audience who didn't play the original Oblivion is a very good idea. Now, granted, there are going to be players that play this game that didn't play the first Oblivion, but I think the majority of people are going to play this remake or remaster of the game because how much they loved the original one. But there is obviously definitely a camp of people who got into the Elder Scrolls after playing Skyrim. That's really the game that broke this entire franchise into the mainstream, and I understand that, but I also understand the whole flip side of this argument, where people want to play the game the exact way it was created back when it originally released. Now, granted, like I mentioned, mods can improve the graphics, but a brand new engine is probably going to improve the graphics, hopefully better than mods can just alter the original version of the game. A lot of people love the old school gameplay, the old school systems, the old school presentation of Oblivion in games that were released back then, because a lot of people think that actually gave them a lot of their charm. But I don't think either of these camps are wrong for thinking the way that they do. I think both of them have valid points for how remakes and remasters are supposed to actually work for a game. I just personally hope that Bethesda, overseeing Virtuos Studio making this game, creates something that all players can enjoy for what it is and what it ends up actually being, regardless if these rumors and leaks are true or not. Something that is a smooth, polished experience for any gamer excited to play this game. I would love to hear what camp you guys are in down below. Are you somebody that wants the game exactly the way it was back when it released with better graphics, or are you somebody that welcomes some different gameplay changes and improvements here? Are you guys excited for this remake, or are you excited, more excited at least, for the Oblivion remake of this game in the Skyrim engine that is going to be free if you already have Skyrim, the special edition, and Oblivion and its DLCs, which also feature some gameplay mechanics with a brand new remake of this game in the creation engine. Regardless, if you're a fan of Bethesda, specifically of Oblivion in general, we're going to be getting 2 remakes of this game, so it's going to be a pretty packed year. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Subscribe for more, like the video if you guys like the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace!